volunteer and you don't have a t-shirt that fits, Valerie back there, they help you out. Some of the candidates have brought literature. I'm sure they would love it if you took some. And I'm Mary Powers. I'm the Memphis group lead of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. You know, we've been around for 10 years, not only in Memphis, but nationwide. And now we're the largest gun violence grassroots organization working to reduce gun violence in the United States. Yeah, thank you. And we're nonpartisan. We're not anti-Second Amendment. We know that gun violence can and will be reduced in the United States and here in Memphis and Tennessee, and that's what we're all about. We're all about reduction and then supporting survivors. So we always start our meetings with a statement that sort of grounds us, our grounding statement. And Laurel caught on the way in, and she was kind enough to agree to read it. So thank you.
Well, like she said, I'm Laurel. This is actually my first meeting, and I'm excited to be here, but I'm also excited to read this for y'all. Okay, so we'd like to begin this meeting by sharing our statement of intention and purpose. Our intention is to foster a robust presence of diversity, equity, and inclusion of and for all individuals and groups choosing to join our efforts. Our purpose is to work together to decrease gun violence and increase public safety across our nation. In our meetings, events, and activities, we value diversity, we advance equity, and we demonstrate inclusion. We are a community. We are gun violence survivors, including victims and witnesses, change makers, and advocates who come together in partnership to work toward a future that is free from gun violence.
Thank you. And then one thing we always do is we always remember people in the community who have lives have been changed either because they're killed through gun violence or unintentional shootings or suicide. And since our last meeting, Tom Daly's gonna.
Can you just hold?
Oh, sure. Do you want?
The last time we met, August 17th, last Saturday. We also remember the 31 killed on street. The killed included 4 women aged 18, 1 teenage boy, 26 men aged 18. We also remember Wes, 21-year-old Texas University student, graduate of St. George's School here. Shot and killed in Fort Worth, Texas. At this time, I invite anybody here who'd like to say killed by gun violence.
And Hannah Bailey, and Rose and Bob Pollitt, and Rosemary Pleasure.
Brandon Johnson.
Well, here's to, that's why we're here tonight. And yes. Thank you.
Elwood Higginbottom.
Thank you. All right, well, we'll remember them now and going forward and hope that we can make a difference and help somebody else's family, help save them from that death. So, all right. Now I'm going to introduce Dave Cameron, who's our legislative lead, and we've asked the candidates to spend about 10 minutes at the most. They can sort of talk about what they had in mind in terms of gun violence reduction, and then take questions. So, and Dave is the timekeeper, right? Or do you want me to be the time? Okay, I can be the timekeeper. And so I think he's just going to randomly call people, right?
Yep.
So if he calls on you, I guess you're running for mayor. So.
So does anybody know what 2 weeks from today is? I bet 5 people do. Anyway, it is election day.
Oops, yeah.
Oh. It is election day. How many people in here live in the city of Memphis? Almost everybody. How many people in here have voted? Not very many. So that means y'all have 2 weeks. Early voting ends not this Saturday, but next Saturday. And then, of course, election day is on Thursday. So please, please, please get out to vote. There's a lot of good people running for office. We're going to get several of the mayoral candidates or their spokesmen to come up and talk. And then we'll circle back and talk a little bit about how you can help some of our gun sense candidates who are running for city council. And that's it. And also, like Mary said, Dave Cameron, legislative lead and election lead. And I have another counterpart, but she's not here tonight. Out of town. So anyway, through random choice, I thought I would let Van go first. So Van, come on up.
All right.
How's everyone doing? It's a pleasure to be here with you all. This work is very important work. And so I want to make sure that you know you have an ally in me in the work that you all are doing. I read up on the history as I was sitting here. So you all started in December of 2012 after the Sandy Hook massacre. And we all remember that fateful day in which that occurred. And the thought that goes through your head is always, what if that were my child? What if my child was in that elementary school, innocent, just there that day, trying to do what any child that age would do, and a mad person comes through with an assault rifle and does what we all saw occurred. And so that should be our driving force here in Tennessee and everywhere in America, to make sure we have strong, sensible, and responsible gun laws. And as the next mayor of Memphis, you can count me as an ally in putting forth whatever I can put forth, support of the city council, going to Nashville, going to DC, to make sure that we enact sensible gun laws. I wrote down a few points here so I can stay on time. I don't want Dave to put that hook on me and pull me off stage. One, when I first announced for mayor in September 1, 2022, I was one of the first candidates. I don't know if any of the other candidates did so, but I called for a moratorium on the horrible gun laws which had just been passed. And that moratorium was sent directly to Governor Bill Lee. Bill Drees posted it, and Governor Lee was asked, and he responded to what I stated. And basically, I asked Governor Bill Lee to enact an exception or a moratorium on the permitless gun carry law that had just been passed for Memphis and for all other major cities in Tennessee. It is absolutely absurd for us to have a situation in which you need a license to drive a car. You need a license to drive a car. You have to be trained to drive a car, but you can just go to any Walmart, any gun store and get a gun without training, no permit, and just bear it on your person or in your car. We have literally lost our minds as a state. So I asked Governor Bill Lee to do something about it, and he said, no. We all know why. They're controlled by the NRA, and they're afraid that the NRA will run a candidate against them. I don't care what they tell you, that is the reason, and you know it, and I know it. And so we have to do what we can to fight for ourselves and to fight for our community. In the debates, and I'm sure y'all have seen some of the debates, I've tried to articulate it as best as possible that we need to enact something here locally. We can't just take this line down. We have to fight. And what that perhaps looked like is litigation. And I'll give you a quick story. I clerked for a federal judge when I first came back home after law school, Samuel Hardy Mays Jr. And we were able to witness or observe other federal trials which were taking place. One case that I observed was a illegal gun case. You know why I was observing a legal gun case? Because there was a ban on assault rifles back in 2002, 2003. That's why I was observing a federal jury trial. And the gentleman was a barbershop owner, and I knew him. My father taught him in school. And he had a an assault rifle in his barbershop. They had cut a wall in the barbershop, and that's where he had that assault rifle and some other assault rifles. So that case went to jury trial, and his argument was that was a patron of his barbershop that knew the secret compartment where this gun was held, stuck it in there, and blamed it on the owner of the barbershop. The jury didn't buy it, and they convicted this man for a long time, because back then you had federal sentencing, which kicked in, and you have to serve all of your time once the feds sentence you. And so I think back to that time when we had sensible gun laws. There was no need for any individual to have an assault rifle for anything in a civilized society. And we were prosecuting those cases, and we were putting away these folks who thought it was important to have an assault rifle on the streets of Memphis. And the reason we were able to do that was through the Interstate Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution, which basically says if anything travels from state to state, federal law kicks in. We don't produce guns in Memphis. Guns are brought to Memphis and they're stored at our shops. So we can still tap into that Interstate Commerce Clause to go against these gun owners for bringing these guns into our communities. And then they end up on the streets harming and killing Memphians. We have to fight it. I say the mayor could authorize the city attorney. They could hire out a law firm, and we sue. And we create a record. We bring in all the victims who have died or who have been ill affected by these crazy gun laws in Tennessee, and we create a record. We bring in experts, and we talk about the psychological damage that's been done to adults and to young people. And we may not win that case, but that is not the end of it. We take that record to the U.S. Congress, and we start building a record before the U.S. Congress so that we can enact federal legislation again for sensible gun laws, because we know the Tennessee General Assembly will not do it. We have to take matters into our own hands, and we have to go to the federal courts in order to do it. As mayor, I would push that. I would authorize the city attorney to do it. I will retain the biggest and baddest law firm in the state to prosecute the case. We'll build a record, and we'll keep fighting and fighting and fighting until we can get responsible gun legislation in this city. We also have to look at the fact that bullets are not necessarily guaranteed by the Second Amendment. And y'all have seen this from time to time. You're guaranteed the right to have a firearm, but you're not necessarily guaranteed the right to have 1,000 bullets at your disposal. One thing that we could do as a supplement to what Councilman Jeff Warren has done, and I appreciate what he has done on city council. Obviously, they're going to fight back, and that's going to go to the court, and we know what the laws say. But again, we're establishing a record. But one thing that we should do is limit the amount of bullets individuals can have to be used by these assault rifles and guns in Memphis. Now, again, we could face litigation, and we will, but this is a smart approach. This is something that has grounds to allow us to sue. And I think as we look at how do we get around what's going on in Tennessee, we do that as well. We enact an ordinance in Memphis that limits the amount of ammunition individuals can have for their guns and their assault rifles. Or we would ask that those individuals have to register when they go and they buy these caseloads of bullets. And so these are some things, some smart pieces of legislation that we could fight for and pass as resolutions and ordinances at the city council level. And I think the next mayor needs to champion these pieces of legislation in order to effectuate sensible gun laws here in Memphis and Shelby County. And if the state fights us, they fight us. We can't work with the state on this issue. They're gone. There's no need for the Memphis mayor starting January 2024 to go up and try to speak sense into Bill Lee. You had kids get killed. They were maimed before our very eyes. He asked for a special session. They knew a lady that was killed. And yet and still, the Tennessee General Assembly did not do anything. That is Tennessee. There's no talking to those people. We got to fight against them for sensible gun laws in this city. And as your next mayor, I would do so. I've been endorsed by Justin Pearson. He's a fighter. You all know that story. And I think his endorsement sends a message that I am aligned with him and the Tennessee Three on making sure that we have sensible gun laws, not only in Memphis, but throughout the rest of this great state of ours. I'm committed to this cause. Gun violence has affected me and my community, my family. It is absolutely absurd what we are doing. We can do better, and we will do better. I appreciate y'all allowing me to speak with you this evening. I'll take any questions if you have them. Thank you very much. One question. Make it a good one. No. Yes, sir.
Given the nature of the Supreme Court right now,
Yeah.
And where laws could end up being one at the lower court, what can you do to stem gun violence outside of the court? With your office,
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we know what you do. You have gun buyback programs. You obviously, you have to do what you can to reach out to the community to get the guns off the streets. True story. Steven Jackson was in town. If you don't know Steven Jackson, he's a real tall guy, and he's a former NBA star. They were in town for a classic, and he wanted to do a giveaway with NACP. I'm the former president of the NACP. So he came to 588 Vance Avenue, heart of South Memphis, and we gave food out from the branch. But he said, I want to go into the community and give the food out as well. We started doing that, and he saw 3 guys who were observing us because we were on their territory, 3 young men. So he went up to the young men, and I didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, I know he comes back to the branch office with 3 handguns. I said, man, where you get that from? I said, I don't come to Memphis and you an NBA superstar, and man, you know, I'm getting you in trouble, man. He says, no, I saw those guys and I knew what they had on them. They were casing us out, seeing what was going on. And he said, I offered them money and said, hey, I'll pay for your hustle for the week if you hand over your weapons. They handed him their 3 firearms. Each of them got $1,000. He said, go home, get out of these streets. I've paid you for what you would have made hustling this week. I called CJ Davis. Memphis Police Department came and they took the guns out. That's just those 3 guns. How many more guns out on the street? But this is what it's going to take to get this done. We can bring in NBA stars, entertainers, and those who have influence with these young people, and we can do gun buyback programs. And he knew what they were doing. They were hustling to put food on the table. And so that's a short-term answer, but long-term, we got to fight, man. We need laws and not just buyback programs to effectuate change. And I am a believer. And I think that if we fight now and we don't give up this fight, there'll be a better world for our children and grandchildren, because ultimately that's what we're fighting for. Thank you.
For those of y'all who don't know, Van's talking about some rules, or I guess some statutes, or what you want to call them. They're going to be on the ballot next year that Councilman Jeff Warren has proposed about stopping some of the guns here. We're going to talk a whole lot about that next year, because we're going to be helping get the vote out to get those passed so we can start all this court fighting and maybe make our own rules about this and stop some of this. Okay, the next person will be Karen Camper, Representative Karen Camper. She had called me saying she had someplace else she had to be eventually, but she's got a little bit of time, but 10 minutes and then go for it.
Thank you.
Karen has been up in Nashville fighting for us on this crazy, against this crazy stuff.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for letting me go early. I got 8 o'clock I got to be at, and I got to get downtown to it. So I really appreciate that. Look, let me thank Moms Demand Action for your constant vigilance and fighting this fight. You know, I've seen you all in Nashville. I've seen you stand on the front lines, and it means something. It means something not only to your cause, but to the people that you're representing when you come there. And I know it's difficult in Nashville. It's very difficult with the mindset that we have with this commitment to the Second Amendment that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have. But your fight means something. So let me thank you all for that. With respect to running for mayor and what the mayor could do, I agree with the things that's going on with the council. So when you talk with the council members, let's make sure that they're in line with some of this same fight. And what I believe is possible in order to move Nashville, because that's where the laws have to change. I think the councils throughout the state could have a resolution or an ordinance that they're proposing and try to work throughout the state with that same resolution in every one of those legislative bodies coming together to go to Nashville to fight for this. Because I think the more we sound the alarm, the more we will be heard. So if Memphis, who we tried to get a carve out for Memphis when they passed the bill, many of you know that. And I will say that, you know, the leadership from here came to Nashville to testify. I would say the Sheriff's Association was against it. The Police Association statewide was against it. Everybody was against it, but it passed. But I think if our legislative bodies, all of the aldermen and the councilmen, because research shows that 78% of the people, upwards or 80% sometimes, want this change. But if it takes the legislative action from all of the bodies throughout the state, that's where we can probably begin to really move this issue and get mayors in line to support those councils. And so that's what I will be fighting for as your mayor. I will obviously continue to fight. I mean, I've sponsored legislation for Moms Demand Act. I had an ERPO bill last year, and we all know what happened with that, but I've carried one for the last 4 years because I know how important it is. Another reason I feel your work is so important is not just the mass shootings. That's important. But in Memphis, people work up every day to some kind of gun violence. The very night of Covenant, when we were on the House floor praying for the families who had just been impacted, it was a mass shooting at Privé out in Hickory Hill. 4 people that night. And our children are experiencing this, and it's causing trauma to them. It's being normalized to them, and that's not good. And then we send them to school expecting them to perform at a top level. It's a problem. Older people are afraid to even go out at night to where they used to just go and have a good time. Go to the community center and play bingo and things like that. People are staying home. And I also believe that it's affecting our mental health, especially our kids and our teenagers. And I do agree that poverty has something to do with it with respect to stealing them. After we passed that bill that said you can, you know, the castle doctrine, you can go from your house to your car and allow those guns to be in those cars, people saw it as quick money. Bust a window, get a car. They leave a computer there. They don't want the computer. Bust a window, get a car. Bust a window, get a gun. And they're selling it. That's a problem. So I do agree we need ordinances to deal with that. And I don't think we stop fighting with Nashville. I think we still go every year. I think the mayor go and advocate, and as a person who had 15 years there working with folks, we can definitely get in the room and have a conversation. But we have to have a strategy behind us, I feel, statewide to really move it forward. And that's where I think all of these local bodies can join together. It takes work, organizing, grassroots, which is what you all do, and you all have a network across the state that can do that. And every town would probably pitch in for the funding to get it done. So that's something we can do in a municipality in order to try to move our state forward. And I think our families, and I know they are, and our children, they want us to. They want us to think outside the box and try to get something different done to move the people that's making these decisions in our state. Secondly, tomorrow, which I think is a good thing, President Biden has decided he's going to make an unveil tomorrow on a gun prevention Office of Gun Safety and Prevention. He invited 3 of us from Tennessee to be there, myself, Leader Love, and Leader Agberry. We will be there at that announcement tomorrow. And the reason I think that is great is because he's recognized gun violence as a problem countrywide and is willing to do something about it in a preventative measure, not after the fact. There's a lot of after the fact where we go and we try to, and we need that, but we have to prevent it to begin with. And so I'm excited to hear what this unveiling is going to be about and what resources will be available for us here in Tennessee and in Memphis in particular. And so as mayor, it made me think about, I was planning as your mayor to create an office of social justice and activism so people can have access to me as the mayor with the things that they're experiencing. And it's not like a one-time thing and you're gone and we don't think about it anymore. I want a constant presence there. People know they have access to me as your mayor. But this prevention office can be housed there. And that's a direct link from the White House. Executive to executive, it can happen. So that's what I'm going to be asking for when I go tomorrow, the White House. How can Memphis benefit from this? If I'm mayor and I stand up this office within the mayor's office, within the mayor at the mayoral level, executive level, what kind of resources can you give us to help us prevent it to begin with? And I'm sure there's a lot of great creative ideas, but it takes funding to get done. And that's what I want to be fighting for as your mayor. Get the resources we need to prevent it at the beginning and not have to deal with it on the other side, which we'll respond to and we'll do all the things that we do now. But something we're doing is not working. What we're doing now is not working. So we've got to change that. Lastly, I'll say that I'm hopeful. And I know some people tell me you're just an eternal optimist and, you've been up there trying to get this stuff done. But sometimes there's a spark. There's a spark that happens that drives things to change. And I will say that the light has shone even brighter on Tennessee now with what happened with the Tennessee 3. So there's a lot of tension here in our state. Not just on us, but on all of us. And when you have this historic moment in front of you, what do you do with it? And that's the message that I'm bringing to my members at the state level. You have an opportunity to change this. What do you do with that moment? And I'm hoping that we can do something to change this because too many people are dying from this. And our children deserve more. Our children deserve better, and they want us to do better. So as your mayor, I'll continue to advocate. I'll continue to go to not only Nashville, but Washington to fight for our city, to make it a safe place for all of us to live. So I'll take your questions if you have any.
Time for one question.
One question. Okay. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yes. Thank you. Go, I got it.
Something Karen said about changing it.
Bye, George.
Oh, we've got a couple of them floating around. There are things that we can do, and Moms Demand Action, nonpartisan, all we care about is electing candidates, gun sense candidates who are going to do the right thing. And what we'll be doing next year is reaching out to all of you to help us elect gun sense candidates here in Shelby County, both at the Senate and the House level. So anyway, that's coming up. Okay, So we've heard from two. Oh, another thing I want to say is we invited, about 8 or 9 of the mayoral candidates. So some couldn't make it, but we've got a good cross-section here. Brandy, you want to come up?
Yes.
And so I don't get yelled at.
Hello. Most people know me as Brandy. On the ballot, my name is Brandon Price, and I'm running for mayor. I'm here today because I'm tired of gun violence. Most of my life has been spent around it. I've moved from several homes because of it, having guns shoot through my window and such. I've also experienced it on the other side of the law as well, with police and law enforcement pointing at my family, my friends, and my mother as well, and my sick mother in bed, busting our home and stuff like that. I study this, I look through this, and I always want to know why we're going through this. And honestly, the same answer comes up every time, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of markets ruling over our lives, these gun manufacturers making blood money hand over fist, and all our lives are used as collateral. We're all used as collateral, and I'm sick of it. We know that the state house is not going to work with us, and to constantly trying to work with them or trying to fight them the right way with just legal standards and like voting and waiting for the next election. And these things never work. At the end of the day, it just gets chewed up by the same system, and we end up with no results. And even if we were to pass some of the laws that we wanted to pass, like, we're not completely sure that the law is going to keep up with the technology that's coming out more and more to this day. So I personally feel that is markets that's ruling over us, these manufacturers, and I want to go directly to them. I want to cut the head off this snake and start charging them for every dime, every bullet they sent over, or every life that's lost. The people of Memphis need to be refunded all their taxpayer money that's been spent on these lobbyists and just ruined our lives. I believe that 100% that the people deserve to have recompense for the loved ones that they've lost. I want to see these manufacturers taxed directly. I want them to be taxed out of existence, total disarmament, because ultimately, if we continue on the same rail or road that we're on today, it's just creating another arms race between its local citizenry and law enforcement. And like, we have to realize that's not working. It's just not working. Like things that can work is spending money on education or providing food for the city. This library costs a lot of money. Like, in comparison to the police station over there, it's very small and outside the reach of that community over there that I used to stay over there. I used to stay down the street from there. St. Elmo, same house got shot up every year. It didn't matter who lived in it, every year. But a lot of us don't have access to medical care. A lot of us don't have access to clean and safe food. And like, we talk about mental health on the daily, but we don't talk about the lead that's poisoning our water supply, or the amount of funds that's being misappropriated and misused by local officials and line their own pockets in the nonprofit industrial complex. All this money just spent, gone, millions. The city's not meeting its fiduciary responsibility and taking care of its citizenry. So it's two main reasons why we have such gun violence in our community. That's through one reason for me, like, it's either through breakdown, poverty, pollution, uneducation, ill education, and of course, white supremacy. Like, I'm 100% for passing gun ordinances, banning AK-47s, but two things. One, that's never going to stop the Kyle Rittenhouses of the world from coming over and shooting our people because they think we might be too rowdy here in this city. So I want to go directly to the manufacturers. The people need to be paid for them existing. That's my platform. And I'm willing to fight for it 1,000%. I'm willing to fight in Nashville. I'm willing to fight all the way to DC. I already been to DC to like advocate for better public housing for the people, so we can start getting people out of these streets, getting people away from the need to pick up a gun. That's what I'm here for. Yeah, and I've been there, and excuse me, it can be done, and it can be, yeah, it can be done. Anybody have any questions? I don't want to just chatter. 'Cause, at the end of the day, it's all about the money. This don't make any sense. Yes. Oh, somebody. Oh, I thought you were pointing at somebody. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
What are you doing for the people who feel that they like the way this area?
Well, I try to make as many safe spaces as I can. And as mayor, I want to make the city an actual safe space where people will have a place to stay and lay their head, have food in their stomachs, and have a place to go for recreation, for recreation and education. Better libraries for one, but actually meeting the needs of the people. Like, because a lot of people are afraid out there. Don't matter how old they are, or what position in society they live in. A lot of us are making decisions out of fear, and we need to come out of that. Like, we need to actually start taking care of our people. We actually need to start demilitarizing our public resources, because 60%, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but 60% of our budget goes to the police. What is left for food, homes? What is left for infrastructure? Hardly anything. It creates a very destructive city, a very raggedy city, if you don't mind my language. And people needs to be met. That's what I want to do. But thank you for your question. Anybody else? You have another question?
I was saying, if you get elected to be mayor, I want to say fund to help out those families. Because I know me personally, I know many people who don't got enough money to afford this and afford that. Them just not being in the right position.
That's a very good question, and that's something I really want to install for our local policy. It's something called UBI, Universal Basic Income, taxing polluters, taxing these gun manufacturing people who mean our city harm, and giving the money directly to the people. A lot of our taxpayer money has been going to nonprofits and some church organizations when that's totally not right. And these people need to be investigated. They need to be audited. They need to have their assets seized and given directly to the people. Because in reality, we have the money to fund people's lives, but it's going to in the wrong people's hands. Like, we have the money, millions of dollars gone, like the blink of that, like that. It's just gone to, like I said again, a lot of nonprofits who are trying to fix the problem, but actually can't continue to perpetuate it. There's no real government oversight or anything like that. Does anybody know here that the Memphis Housing Authority is not a governmental entity? It's a quasi-governmental. That means there's no public oversight. There is no governmental oversight. They literally can buy and sell Memphis housing to whoever they please. That's what they did to Lamont On Gardens, now then known as College Park, and sold to a church out in Texas. So yeah, they basically kicked out 500 senior citizens and 1,200 other local residents, and they had to find somewhere to stay for the winter for repairs. These things are not right. It's wrong. But yeah, I would definitely put money directly in people's hands, because we also need to start a case for reparations in the city of Memphis, because a lot of gun violence, the source of it was due to racism for slave catching. That's what it is. Like, we need to address that at its source. The Colt 45 was to hunt black people for slavery. Like, that's what it was made for. And that's one of the biggest the gun manufacturer out there. And same thing that's going on here in our city is going on in at the federal level. We are funding countries like Israel to bomb little brown children on a daily basis. But that doesn't get addressed. But we're trying to find something new to figure out poverty. In reality, public transportation can help solve for poverty and also put people at ease. Like I said, healthcare, things that need to be addressed. I'm tired of politicians telling us all these pretty little stories and or this jargonistic speech and not actually meeting the needs of the people. I want to be that person, the mayor for you, because I know for a fact I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need your help. I don't want to be in a position by myself. I need the people that are with me. So all these power brokers don't surround me. I need the people around me, not people who have experience in governing. Like we have to be honest about ourselves. Like we keep doing the same thing, but these people are still maintaining the same system that brought us this in the first place. That's the truth. Anyone else have a question? And thank you for your question. What's your name, sir? Nice to meet you, AJ. Anyone else have a question? Oh, that's fine. All right, thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Here you go.
Okay, next up, Paul Young could not make it. Candidates are busy at this time of year. They're running around all over the place. But he did send a couple of representatives, and I believe Dorcas Young is going to come speak. There you go.
Just hold it.
Oh, no, I did a horrible job about it.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Dorcas Young Griffin. I am not Paul, but I am his older, cuter sister. And I want that on tape, send that to him. Unfortunately, he could not be here tonight, but he did send me. I probably am best poised to speak for him because I have known him his whole life. And I know how passionate he is about this city. I know how passionate he is about families here in this city. And I absolutely know that gun violence is personal to him. A little bit about just our background. We grew up in the Oak Haven neighborhood over by the airport. By the time Paul was 21 and I was 23, we had lost 4 friends to gun violence. We had countless others that had committed violence against other people. My parents, who were pastors of a church in the Oak Haven area, William and Diane Young, one of the reasons that my parents were very committed, have stayed committed to mental health is because in 2004, we had a lady who was a member of our church who felt hopeless and got under the cross and used a gun to take her life. We know the pain of gun violence. Our friends, our families, the people that we love. And so we also know that it's something that no matter what it looks like, no matter how bad it looks at the state, we have to continue to fight. We have to continue to do the things that we need to do to change people's lives, because this is about people. One of the things that I would say about Paul is his background is one where he's done lots of different things. I like to say I got him his first job in government. He wasn't a part of government and I was working for government. And my boss at the time hired him because I told her, I got somebody that's just like me, and I think that he could help you with legislation. She was like, yeah, sure. But she interviewed him, and he began his career in government as a legislative liaison. Over the years, in addition to working on policy for Mayor Warden, Mayor Luttrell, he also moved into a role of actually administering a program called the Office of Sustainability for Memphis and Shelby County. He left me at the county and moved on to Great Pastures and went over to the city and became the Director of Housing and Community Development. And now he's the president of the Downtown Memphis Commission. Why do I mention all of that? I think it's really important when we're talking about gun violence to recognize that this issue is not just one, we can't just do one thing. We got to fight like the Dickens against the laws that are keeping our people down, but we also got to solve some issues that are happening right in our communities right now. We got to deal with the conditions that are creating just the festering of gun violence in our community. And I feel like Paul has both the range and he has some experiences that actually lend well to being able to be a fighter, but also understand how to position people to get the work done that we need to get done now. So what is the kind of work? This is the part where I have to make sure that I don't go off into Dorcas land because I want to talk for Paul and not me. So I made notes to make sure that I say the things I'm supposed to say. One, as mayor, you can expect that Paul will absolutely be right there advocating for sensible gun policies. Again, we heard it. We heard I still call you Commissioner Turner. We heard Van Turner. We've heard Karen Camper. We've heard Brandy Price. We got a hard uphill battle, but the mayor still has to stand firm, has to be your chief advocate. He has to be alongside with you. He has to be at these meetings to know what it is that we are trying to push the state on. You can expect that from him. We also have to make sure that we're doing things. We talked a little bit about gun buyback programs. Of course, that is something that could be implemented. We definitely want to do community outreach programs where we are using influencers and leaders to help build trust with folks in the neighborhood so that we can, again, influence violence and violence prevention. One of the other things that I think is really important, currently the city is in the business of violence interruption. And so you may hear a lot of talk about Memphis Allies and Heal 901 and some of those programs. Those are really important programs that are able to intervene with people at the time that a violent crime is committed. We know that a lot of times gun violence is perpetuated from one incident to another. And so to have people that are trusted, that can go in those situations and disrupt that cycle is something that the city is doing now, but it needs to be brought to scale. And so that is a firm commitment. Focused deterrence. So when we do have folks who have been offenders of gun violence, again, it's a cycle. And so we can take time and book people and put them in jail. They're coming back. They're coming back home. And so what are the things that we are doing to actually put resources for those folks so that we can stop the perpetual cycle? That is something that he's committed to. Of course, when you're talking about violence, you know, prevention is key. We never want it to happen, but we also understand that the reality is that it does happen. And so we have to intervene. And so having smart policing, making sure that we are absolutely using data to figure out where it is most likely that violence is happening and deploy not just law enforcement resources, but preventative resources in those places is absolutely critical. And finally, I'll say, you know, again, we've talked about how hard it is to work with the state. In my other life, I work with the feds, so I know it's hard there too. But we got to keep pushing. We have to build relationships. Even when we are angry, we don't want to come to the table, we got to do it. And so I believe that with Paul, you will never have a person that will leave the table, no matter if he disagrees with you or not. If you have a heated discussion about policy, he's at the table because the fight is that important. So I hope I don't get a lot of questions. I think I can answer questions. But I will close just by saying that thank you. On behalf of Paul and just my personal thank you. Thank you for the work that you are doing to advocate for the families of our 4 friends. Thank you for doing the work that you are advocating for a church member and countless other people, not just in this community, but all across this nation. And like Karen Camper, I'm an optimist. I believe that even though it takes the Titanic, we are only turning it half of a degree, not even that much each day. We just got to keep pushing, and eventually we will turn this thing around because of you all. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer one question. One.
It's unfair.
Huh?
It's unfair for Dorothy to have to answer for her brother.
It is. That's right. It's unfair, but I'll try, or I'll defer it to Paul. I will write it down and we'll answer it later. Is there anyone have a question? Oh, we got 2 questions. Oh gosh. Okay, we're ready. We're ready.
Okay, so I just heard about Community 911 as well, so I'd love to hear you about those are you being called in the community, and I'd love to hear more about how call wants.
Absolutely. We'll talk to him about the connection to the meetings. I think in terms of places like Hill 901, Memphis Allies has a network of partners like I shall live and not die. I always confuse it. But there are lots of different partners that are doing the work on the streets. And one of the things that he is deeply committed to because of his work in neighborhoods is to make sure that the folks that have been out here doing this work for free, that we figure out how we fund them, right? Like there are opportunities in budgets to do what you want to do. And so we have to be committed. We can't get distracted by like somebody, all these different, we got to be committed to the priority of really, really digging in and supporting organizations like Heal 901, like I Shall Live and Not Die. I'm saying it right. Okay. And others that we don't know about, right? And I know that he's committed to that. Is that it? Was that sorry for the second question, but we can write it down. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And also, we've got people here tonight, and I know after they've had a chance to come hear us and see what our mission is, I know they're all going to be back to be supporting us as we move forward, continuing this battle into next year. Okay, we have one more person to speak, and Michelle could not make it. She was here last month, but she sent John McKissick and son, isn't it? Yes. He is her son, and he can speak for her.
Good evening. I am so glad to be back here again another month with Moms Demand Action. So my name is John McKissick. My mom, Michelle McKissick, is running for mayor of Memphis. So I just saw someone I knew. So, yes. So a little bit about me. I am her campaign manager. She actually is not paying me to say that because I'm working for free. That's what happens when you get family. So you get more money for the rest of the budget and marketing. So. Regardless, I came down from Chicago. I was working in Chicago at a bank there, working pension funds, endowments, helping them manage their money and be good stewards for their constituents. But my mom said, hey, John, I kind of want to do something crazy. I want to run for mayor. And I said, what? But the more I thought about it, I said, I have to be a part of making history. She would become the first woman mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. And I said, you know what? I need to do everything that I can to make that happen. So I called up my boss. I said, so got some tough news. I'm leaving. I'm going to go help my mom out. And I said, well, don't go. We'll give you a sabbatical. I said, sure, but I'm going. So we'll figure out that stuff later. But they said, go, take 6 months, work for your mom, come back later. And so that's how I ended up here. I believed so strongly in my mother and her vision for the city that I said, all right, whatever I can do, I'm going to do it. And so I moved into my brother's bedroom. It's decorated like his own bedroom. I finally did move into his closet. But anyway, that's beyond the point. One of the things when it comes to gun violence, we all can understand it intellectually. Everyone here understands why we need gun legislation and gun reform. But at the beginning of the meeting, when we were remembering those who have passed, it hit me that not only do we understand it intellectually, we get it emotionally. And I just recently had that moment. Back in May, in Mother's Day, my grandmother and my aunt were eating at a restaurant. I know some of you all have heard this story. Downtown, Harbortown, the neighborhood that I grew up. And they were eating there, and my grandmother has like a sixth sense. You know how, your grandmas just always know they got something going on. And she looked to the person next to her. She said, I'm feeling a little unsettled. But She was like, I'm just gonna eat my catfish and go on. Well, not only, maybe 5-10 minutes later, a car rolls up. An individual gets out of the car and has one of the largest guns my grandmother and my aunt had ever seen. My aunt yells, he has a gun, we gotta run. So the individual that she actually looked at earlier runs inside. And then my grandmother, who's 85, runs like she's 18. she's going. Left her purse. She had her dealer's money in there, had $500 in her purse, just left it, left her phone and got in the car. And so they get in the car and they're like, okay, where do we go? And we live, 10 blocks down the way. So my aunt calls me up and she says, can we come over to your house? I'm like, sure, it's a party. It's like, no, someone was oozing up the restaurant. I'm like, oozing it up? Like, what does that mean? I just didn't comprehend to me that my grandmother and my aunt could be in a situation where they were in harm's way. And so that's just my personal story. My mom has her own version of it. She was over in Arkansas at Walmart, and that's when she got the call. I called her up. But this is not just an intellectual thing. This is an emotional thing. And, one of the people earlier said, this is people first. That's what that means. We got to make sure that we're taking care of people. My grandmother was impacted. Now, so it's not just her, but it was also me. It's going to be how I'm going to raise my family. They're going to be impacted knowing that my grandmother could have been killed. So what are we going to do about it? My mom, Michelle McKissick, I'm going to say it as many times so you remember, she has a plan called Whole City Memphis. She's on the board of the Memphis Shelby County Schools, and during the pandemic, she was the board chair. And she realized that the city government is not talking to the county government government's not talking to the school district, and school district's not talking to the city government. And she's like, that's a problem. So she calls up, the city mayor, calls with the county mayor, is like, we need to get together and work to make things happen. And she's had to serve between the egos of all those men, having to play telephone because they didn't want to meet in the room together. And so as mayor, she's talking about bringing the whole city to the table to solve these problems. That's why it's called Whole City Memphis. Looking at our safety plan, it's based in what we call the 3 Ps. Partnering with police, providing justice, preventing crime. Looking at partnering with police, most of the candidates will tell you that we are understaffed at the moment. But not only are we understaffed for police officers in general, we need more detectives. According to the FBI, 4 out of 5 crimes in Memphis, Tennessee go unsolved. Nothing happens. That's what's happened with my grandmother. Someone has not been arrested and charged with that crime. We need more detectives to help us solve crimes. We're currently understaffed with detectives. Now, so once we get the police force up and the detectives, we can start solving more crimes. We can get back to community policing. I don't know if some of y'all know about COAC units. They, are no longer in place. But you can only have those types of things where people are embedded in the community when you have enough officers to do that. Second thing, providing justice. We are policing poverty right now. There's so many people over in 201 Poplar who have mental health issues or who have tickets that they can't pay for, and they're stuck because they can't pay for bail. They can't get out. Or they don't have the support system to help them get out. Meanwhile, you have violent offenders who, by whatever means, are able to post bail. Just so you all know, I've recently learned this, that no longer do you have to pay the 10%. You can actually put your bail on layaway. So what happens is there's a couple of new laws that have been put in place where you're able to pay your bail over time. As long as you direct deposit it, they'll take care of it for you. So we need to start working across the city, with our, wonderful lawyers in the room, our state legislatures, and making sure that we are enabling those who are really trying to do their best, but they're bogged down by so many different other things. Mental health, poverty. They don't have the structure to help them. Meanwhile, you have others who are causing chaos in our community, but aren't actually being held accountable. So the final P, preventing crime, which is probably the most fun. It's called investing in our youth. giving them things to do. You know, we used to have Liberty Land, Adventure River, all these amazing things where kids could go and just express themselves. Community centers used to be open. We had community center pools. Now, you know, my mother went to the one out in Westwood because her godmother, my great godmother, I don't know how that hierarchy works. But anyway, she lives in Westwood, and you know, we'd go and play in the Westwood pool, or she would. But now it's dried up. There are weeds growing out, you know, the pool. What are we doing to help support youth to live their best lives? And then you start thinking about wraparound services. They go to school, but what's happening at home? If you're always ducking and dodging bullets, if your gangs are recruiting you on the way to school, what life could they see for themselves when everything that's being presented to them is negative? Like, they don't care. And that's what my mom, Michelle McKissick, says. The city of Memphis has to get back in the business of caring about its kids. It's just that simple. So, partnering with police, providing justice, and preventing crime. That is how Michelle McKissick wants to address within her power as mayor of Memphis to reclaim our safety. So, we can talk about the state. We can talk about, fighting at the federal level, and that's something that she is 100% dedicated to. But what she's really going to prioritize as mayor is taking all of you all and all the city has to come to the table to solve what we can here. And then she will fight at Nashville and she'll fight in DC because she's really good at it. I've seen her advocate as my mom, so she does a pretty good job. And I ended up all right. So thank you all. I really do appreciate it. Please head to her website, michelleformemphis.com. She has an extremely detailed plan on all the different things she wants to tackle, from public safety to investing in our youth to taking care of the blight in the city. It's very, very extensive. I'm like, wow, like women really get work done. So I'm really proud of her and all the things that she's been able to do thus far. So questions? How am I doing on time?
Not the questions, you lucked out.
All right.
Like I said, it's unfair to ask a representative questions.
Hey, I'll take them to her. I'll text her. And once again, she's apologized for not being here, but she was here last month, as was previously mentioned. So thank you.
Microphone.
Aha. Voila.
Okay, we've got an extra surprise. We thought we only had 5, but he just got here. Sheriff Floyd Bonner, another one of the representatives. I don't know, Floyd. Not too bad. There you go.
What is that?
It's a microphone there. He'll yell at you if you don't put it on.
Oh.
He's got his back turned, so he might not notice.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank all of you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity. I apologize for being late, but I have a day job. It's called being the sheriff, and we had a correctional deputy class that was graduating tonight, and it started at 6 o'clock as well. I think the theme or the topic is about gun control. Am I right? I've been running gun violence prevention. Well, let's talk about gun violence prevention. Over the course of years, as you know, I was elected sheriff in 2018. When I was elected in 2018, carrierless permit started coming around as people started to talk about carrierless permit. Well, I fought against carrierless permit, even so much as going to the governor's office, sitting down, having a conversation with the governor and talking with the governor that this was not a good idea for Shelby County. We even talked to the governor about carving Shelby County out. Well, when we left that meeting, the governor said, we'll consider it. We'll think about it. Well, obviously, he did consider it. He didn't think about it a whole lot because he eventually wound up signing the bill to bring in carrierless permit. So, being a member of the Tennessee Sheriff's Association with the other, it's 95 sheriffs throughout the county. Throughout the state. I talked to our group, and we, as a group, opposed the bill. We opposed it. Again, we sent that message to the governor, hoping that 95 sheriffs would change the tide or make him reconsider. Well, he didn't. As we all know, he eventually wound up signing the bill. Just this year alone, and I saw some of you, many of you, I saw many of the T-shirts mom demanding actions when we were in the Senate. And I went up for 3 weeks in a row, going up there because, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know how close we came to having long guns being passed. And many of you that were in those Senate hearings, you know, we made it through with an eyelash. It probably will come back up again next year. And so we'll have to fight the fight again. Hopefully, if we can keep as many Shelby County senators on that board, maybe we can defeat it again. We hope so, but we're going to fight. We have to fight. This is our community. All of us know about gun violence. All of us see it each and every day. We see it on the news. We hear our neighbors, our friends, and talking about it. So what can we do right now? Even talking with some legislators, it has to come back up through the legislature, through the state, through the Hill. But I promise you, as the mayor of Memphis, that's a fight I'm willing to fight. I fight it now as your sheriff, again, going up to Nashville, seeing many of you there. And you all know the ones that went to Nashville, you knew what kind of fight that was, and in talking with legislators. But that brings me to another point. It's about having relationships. You must have relationships with people in the General Assembly, in Nashville, because that is the only way that you can get things done. There are not enough legislators in Shelby County to sway the state one way or the other. So when it's time to go to Nashville, you don't go and just talk to the Shelby County legislators. You've got to be able to go and talk to legislators that are from other sides of the state. I'm proud to say that Representative Moon in East Tennessee up in Blount County, he's been a friend of ours ever since I've been the sheriff. He's one that I can go and talk to. He's one that has some say in Nashville because his tenure has been there for so long. So when you start trying to sway people and sway people's persuasion, you have to have those relationships, and I do. Mayor Strickland has done a great job. Matter of fact, when we went up to see the governor one time, Mayor Strickland went with us, and Chief Davis and I went up and we saw the governor. We sat at the conference table and we talked to him, but we didn't win that bout because we asked for a Shelby County carve out. And again, I would still love to see Shelby County carved out of this, because what works in urban doesn't work will not work in rural. And that's a difference. And I won't call the representative or the state senator's name, but he was a state senator from this area that was about to vote for that. And you know, those of you that went up there know that we only made it by one vote. And it took a lot of persuading for this state senator to understand that this wasn't good for Shelby County. Reason being, he's hunted all his life. Many of you are older that have grown up, you know, back in the day when you put your shotgun in the back window and go to school, not worry about it. Times have changed. You can show up at school now with a shotgun, you're going to see a car, a car with some blue lights on the top. So, so many things have changed, but ladies and gentlemen, this is a fight that's going to have to continue on and on and on, because for some reason, we have become such a gun-crazed nation. Now, I'm not against guns. I'm not against people owning guns, but what I am against is if you're not being responsible. And what I mean by responsible, I believe in background checks. I believe they should have background checks. I don't know why that's so difficult. And I believe that we still should have the permit system. There was nothing wrong with the permit system that we had. As a matter of fact, during the conversation we were having with the governor, we even mentioned to him, do the permits, but give it to someone free. Give it to them free. If you want everybody to carry, at least make them go to class and learn how to use a weapon, the do's and the don'ts, when you can and when you can't. I read too many reports where people are cleaning their weapon and then they shoot themselves. And it's just ridiculous to the point that we've gotten to. But again, it's going to be an uphill fight, and it's going to be a hard fight. I don't know, because when you look at the states across the nation, where all the states are going, they're going to this. but it can't be solved on the local level. But then we've got to also, in many of our cases in law enforcement, thefts from motor vehicle is what's driving our numbers. That's what's driving my numbers out in unincorporated Shelby County. Now, I won't put it all on juveniles, saying that juveniles, because there's some grown folks breaking in cars, okay? But a lot of times when they're breaking in cars because they're looking for weapons. Because of the Castron doctrine, your car is an extension of your home, so therefore you can carry the gun in your car now. Well, many of us that carry guns, we don't have gun safes. Gun safes are fairly cheap. I wish that the state would pass a law to require at least you carry a safe in your car if you're going to carry a gun in your car. The only thing that I am fearful of on that is that when someone gets their gun stolen and there is a penalty, then they don't report the gun being stolen. If it's $1,000 fine or whatever the fine could be. So there's a lot of things that have to be worked through. There's a lot of things that we have to talk about. But I'm willing to do the work as the mayor of Memphis. I've had experience with this before, and will continue to work. Again, when I showed up in Nashville those 3 weeks in a row, when they were talking about having allowing you to carry long guns, I was so excited to see those red T-shirts out in the audience, because you showing up made a difference. That's why I took 15 to 20 officers with me wearing uniforms to sit out in that audience and make a difference. Because when we show up, it's a little bit harder for them to vote on doing something, especially when we're coming out of Shelby County. It makes it a little bit difficult for them to vote. Now, it was those of you that remember, it was a couple of senators that were there on that board that was from rural town, Tennessee. They didn't care. They don't care. And only thing that they're moving for or voting for is their constituents. And it shouldn't be that way, because we have too many urban areas, well, not enough urban areas in the state of Tennessee where gun control is a problem. And for everyone to carry guns is just, without any training, is utterly ridiculous. But that's my opinion. Couldn't get it done before, but we did win the fight on the long guns this year, and we will continue to fight. We will continue to fight for each and every one of you to make this Shelby County, our city, Memphis, as safe as we can possibly make it. So that's where I'm at. I don't know. I'm sorry, again, I was late. I had a graduating class tonight, so I don't know what all the topics were. Do I need to talk to?
You got 1 second left.
Oh. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. Am I to answer questions? Oh, yes. Can I answer a question today?
One question.
Oh, well, I'm not going to pick between you two. So, all right.
So last time I was at the county commission, they passed an ordinance which allowed a 6-figure spending budget for heavy duty mobile surveillance training. I just wanted to ask, what plans does the sheriff department, what are we going to do with those heavy duty surveillance training?
I'm trying to remember, was it our Bearcat that you were, how long ago was that?
It was a couple weeks ago. It's a purchase from the Skypop company, the ones that have all the cameras.
Yeah, what I'm thinking you're talking about is we might be buying a new Bearcat, and that's not a vehicle. It's not an assault vehicle. It's a vehicle that we use. Just the other day, this way, when Bartlett MPD had the barricade situation, we used that vehicle to push the door open. It's a bulletproof vehicle. We used the vehicle to push the door open. Our officers backed out. When the guy was in there on a barricade, that's what we use it for. We don't use it as a... Well, see, that's what I'm a little bit confused now. Narcotics does have a surveillance van that they use on narcotics investigation. I worked in narcotics 13 and a half years. So I don't know if I'm confusing the two because I'm not getting exactly what you're saying, but I'm trying to give you an explanation as to what we will have a surveillance van that's very, very, very high-tech equipment in there, but those are used in drug investigations.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I get one more minute before I turn it back to Mary. Oh, we need to take a picture. So, but anyway, we have two candidates running for city council who are gun sense candidates. Means they filled out a questionnaire and they received gun sense from Moms Demand Action. And that is Megan Keel and Jerry Green. And they are looking for volunteers. Anybody who wants to volunteer, and basically they need poll workers, phone call makers, and that's probably about it. Even canvassers if you really want to go all the way out. But any of this is fun, but please come see me after the meeting and I'll get your information and hook y'all up. And with that, we are going to turn it back over to Mary.
Thanks so much for everybody.
Yeah, let's give them all a hand.